I hear a lot of people talk about wanting to read more, then they approach it with this 10 pages a day mindset, which is perfectly fine, but I just think it lacks a bit of power. And it turns this fun thing, reading, into this weird work task that you know you should do, but you don't really want to, and so you create a routine to force yourself to do it. And to me, this is totally backwards. You should learn to love reading so much that you just devour knowledge voraciously. Also, the 10 pages a day mindset, it's just a bit meek. Like, assuming you can read, you can totally pick up a 300-page book and just finish it in a day. An average reading speed is about 300 words per minute. A 300-page book has around 90,000 words in it, so an average person can finish it in 5 hours. Look, here's me reading all of Aldous Huxley's Brave New World in one sitting. I'm not saying you should do this, but it really pays to be open to the possibility, because the alternative sucks. Here's what I see a lot of people doing. They treat books like these big scary things. They buy books because they want to be the kind of person who reads. Then when they don't read them, they feel kind of weird about it. Practically speaking, this turns books into these locked chambers representing hours of laborious effort. And so people stop reading altogether. Or worse, they force themselves to do it. Whereas if you develop the belief that you can read well, books become open books. They become mystical worlds that you can crack open and get immersed in for a few hours. But this attitude is not the easiest thing to adopt because it goes against all of the default programming lots of us picked up with regards to reading. And so, here are 3 practical tips on how to love learning in your own life. Do not ever read things that you don't want to. The core thing, the most important thing is love. It's affection and interest. Because when you want to do something, you do it automatically. You do it without any prompting. And even better, you do it with attention. Love is a better tool for focus than any stimulant or productivity technique. It's why people will struggle to study for 20 minutes but can play video games for 5 hours. And you can foster the same loving attitude with reading. And this process begins with allowing yourself to be honest about what you're actually interested in. And to do that, we have to do some deprogramming. People have this weird preciousness with books. They treat them like schoolwork, like this thing you have to diligently hammer through even if you don't want to. I don't believe in doing this. In fact, I think it's totally counterproductive if your goal is to learn to love reading, as you're essentially teaching yourself that reading is about expending willpower. And willpower is always a limited resource. Otherwise, you just command yourself to do all the things you think you should do and we'd all have a 6-pack and be rich. So how do we tap into this limitless source of fuel? To do this, you have to learn to trust your own instincts. And for this to occur, you should never read dry texts. If a book is boring, stop reading it, put it down, read something fun instead. By following your own amusement, you start calibrating yourself to what you're earnestly interested in, helping you to actually love reading and also helping you attune to your own innermost sensibilities. This doesn't at all mean that you should avoid difficult material. On the contrary, tough material in a field that you're fascinated by is like a puzzle. It's amazingly fun to get through. Whereas difficult material in something that bores you to death is like an impenetrable wall that I have seen many people run into, and it can kill your reading journey. I think you should treat books like the playgrounds that they are. Take notes, highlight, skip around to chapters, find what is most fun to you. Follow your own amusement. Basically, whenever you have the option for something to be either work or play, always allow it to be play. Over time, this attitude is going to bring you towards material that you are actually interested in, not just things that you want to be interested in because they sound impressive or whatever. So do not read dry texts. Most people suck at reading but don't realize it. Look, everything in life is a practice. Skills gain with use, and they degrade with disuse. And reading is no different. But I think people forget about this because we all sort of read all the time. We read the texts our friends send us or the white text above memes. But reading a book is an entirely different faculty. And like any skill, if you aren't used to it, it's going to feel hard at the beginning. If you just started running and you tried to go out and run a half marathon right away, that'd be really tough. But if somebody's a regular runner who runs marathons, a half marathon is just part of their weekly running routine. And you can become this proverbial marathon runner. You just have to practice a bit. Do not make the mistake of projecting the difficulties you have at the beginning out into the future. For instance, yesterday I sat down and read around 100 pages of a book, and there was no strain. I started because I was curious, and I stopped when I wasn't anymore. There was never any push throughout the whole process, it was practically effortless. But I can recall last year when I was looking to get back into reading again, and how much of a struggle it was to get through even 5 pages. And here's something really cool. Comprehension is also a skill that you can practice. So you can literally get better at understanding what you read if you practice this skill. Your ability to hold complex ideas in your mind increases with training, your literary comprehension increases, it all gets better if you train it. Which is why when I read, I like to use techniques like spaced repetition or the Feynman technique to consistently improve this skill. And if you're curious what this looks like, I included all of my notes from reading Brave New World in my email newsletter, which I've left a link to in the description. Anyway, the point is that reading and comprehension are both mechanical skills that improve with practice, so you shouldn't be discouraged if it's hard at the beginning. Also, don't push yourself, because remember, what we're trying to do here is learn to love reading. So my advice is to read for fun. Gently push yourself, but don't force anything. And when it stops being fun, stop reading and don't blame yourself at all. And if you keep doing this, over time you're going to learn to fall in love with reading once again. Finally, make it easy for yourself. People have this misconception that reading a lot is about speed reading and consuming like 3 pages of knowledge at once or something. But really, speed is mostly a function of not being distracted. Actually, I'm convinced almost all productivity advice is captured by that one idea. You don't have to wake up at 4 AM or do red light therapy. Simply do not get distracted from the thing that you are doing. And applying this to reading, the single most helpful thing I've done here is simply hiding my phone. In fact, if I have one weird trick to share about how to read more, for me it was just putting my phone in my bag pocket instead of my pants pocket, and also always carrying a book with me whenever I went out. Because I did this, I essentially substituted all of my waiting around time with reading, so when I'd be waiting for a train or whatever, I'd just read instead of checking my phone. And this made a somewhat astounding difference to my quality of life. Which brings me to the real reason I wanted to make this video, which is reading rocks. Reading makes the world so much richer. You're not a better person or anything like that because you read, it's just that books are beauty spectacles. After reading, it's like you see the whole world in an alternate shade for a while. Over and over again, I've seen the difference this makes in my own life. I keep a travel journal where I log what I do and how it's impacted my well-being, and I can tangibly see how much difference it makes, those 10 minutes spent reading while waiting in line versus 10 minutes spent scrolling Instagram. And the difference is far larger than I feel like it should be. For some reason, scrolling on the world genuinely makes my world feel smaller. It's like I get square eyes and my field of view becomes contracted. Reading is the exact opposite. It's as though I can see more. And that's it. So let's recap the principles. First, we have to recognize that joy is the best engine of intelligence. Thus, we optimize around joy. To do this, we foster enjoyment by reading things we actually want to read and not reading dry texts. Additionally, we understand that reading is a skill and it improves with practice. Finally, we create environments that are conducive to practice and focus and fun. Thanks very much for watching.